Welcome back to Elderly Smiles. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and click the bell icon to stay updated. Let's begin the discussion.
As we get older, I think we all start to really think about family, right? Like how to make those bonds even stronger.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a natural instinct to want to share more of ourselves, all our experiences and wisdom with our family as we go through life.
Yeah, and you want to pass on those lessons learned too. But I was reading this article that had a really interesting take.
Yeah.
It argued that sometimes not sharing everything, keeping some things private, can actually help those relationships.
That's fascinating. We always hear about the importance of communication and openness, but this is like a different angle on that.
Right. It's not about being dishonest, but maybe just being mindful of how what we say, even with good intentions, could affect others.
Being sensitive to those around us.
Exactly. So this article, it had 5 main points, and the first one was all about past mistakes, those big ones that maybe still kind of haunt us.
Ooh, those can be tough to deal with, for sure.
The article gave this example of a man, we can call him Mr. Lawrence, who told his granddaughter about a business deal that went really bad.
Oh, no.
He thought he was teaching her a lesson about trust, but she ended up looking at him differently, and he felt really vulnerable sharing it.
Makes sense, though. Even if we learn from those mistakes, sometimes hearing them can change how we view people.
And it can be a burden for the listener, too, right? Like, they now have to carry that knowledge, that worry, even if it was long ago.
Right. Like maybe it's better to focus on the lesson learned, the wisdom gained, without giving all the messy details.
Like, instead of describing that whole failed business deal, maybe just say, I learned to be more careful about who I trust in business.
Exactly. Give the takeaway without the emotional baggage. I like that.
So that's point 1. Being careful about sharing past mistakes, even if we think it's for their own good.
It's a tough balance for sure. Wanting to protect them, but also respecting their own journey.
And speaking of things that maybe we overshare about as we get older, the article's second point was about minor health issues.
Oh boy, that's relatable.
Right. It gave the example of a woman, Mrs. Eleanor, who would constantly talk about every ache and pain to her kids.
Oh, I can see how that would happen. As we age, we become more aware of our bodies, maybe a little too much sometimes.
Exactly. And Mrs. Eleanor, she realized she was making her kids worry unnecessarily, and she felt like they were seeing her as frail instead of her vibrant self.
It can really change the mood, too, can it? Like, every conversation becomes about health concerns.
Yeah, it's like a downer. And while it's important to talk about serious health issues, maybe those everyday aches and pains, they don't need to be shared every time.
Unless it's something that needs attention, of course.
Absolutely, but it's about balance, right?
Yeah.
Focusing on the positive, enjoying time together, not dwelling on every little twinge.
Creating happy memories, not stressing them out over a stiff back.
Exactly. And this actually ties into the article's third point, which might surprise you, is about unfulfilled dreams.
Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that one.
Yeah, they talked about a man, Mr. James, who always wanted to be a musician, but life took him in a different direction.
Happens to a lot of us, I'd imagine.
Right. But instead of dwelling on what could have been, he focuses on the good things about his life now, the skill he learned in his actual career.
So it's about finding fulfillment in the path you did take, even if it wasn't the one you originally dreamed of.
Exactly. And the article argued that sharing those unfulfilled dreams, while maybe well-intentioned, can actually burden our loved ones.
How so?
Well, they might feel guilty, like they somehow played a part in those dreams not coming true, or they start questioning their own choices.
Oh, I see. It's adding a weight to their shoulders that wasn't there before.
Right. It's like those dreams are part of who we are, but they don't have to define us or cast a shadow over the good things in our present.
That's a good way to put it. It's about celebrating the life you have built, not dwelling on the what-ifs.
And, sometimes those unfulfilled dreams can even be a source of strength, right? Like they show our resilience, our ability to adapt and find meaning in unexpected places.
That's true. It's about finding the silver lining, I guess.
And maybe sharing that lesson with loved ones, the ability to bounce back and find joy without necessarily going into the specifics of the lost dream.
That's a nice way to frame it. Sharing the positive takeaway, the wisdom gained, without burdening them with the whole emotional backstory.
Exactly. Like those folks who have faced setbacks but still radiate contentment, they inspire us without needing to list every dream they didn't achieve.
Very true. And it's a good reminder that life throws curveballs, and it's how we handle them that really matters.
Speaking of curveballs, Haven't we all had those moments where we want to steer our loved ones in a certain direction, even if it's not their chosen path?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one. Wanting the best for them, but also respecting their choices.
And that's the article's next point. The importance of choosing support over criticism, even when we disagree.
It's so hard, right? Because we do want what's best for them, but sometimes that can make us, well, maybe a little too pushy with advice.
Totally. And this article had a great example about that. A woman, Mrs. Amelia, who was really worried about her daughter starting a business.
Oh, I see. Instead of taking like a safer, more traditional route.
Yeah, exactly. And Mrs. Amelia tried to steer her toward a more stable career, but it backfired. Hurt her daughter's feelings and caused some tension.
Makes you think, like, are we really helping, or are we just projecting our own ideas of success onto them?
That's the big takeaway for me from Mrs. Amelia's story. It's so easy to do that without even realizing it. Our own fears, our own experiences, shaping how we view their choices.
Like, what we think is best might not be what's best for them based on their own values and goals.
Totally. So before we offer advice, especially when it comes to big life decisions, maybe take a moment to check ourselves. Like, is this really about them, or is it more about our anxieties?
That's a good question to ask. And even if we disagree with their choices, the article emphasized that being supportive, even just listening, can make a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes people just need to feel heard and validated, not told what to do, even if it comes from a place of love.
It builds trust, too, right? Showing them we believe in their ability to figure things out, even if they make mistakes along the way.
Which, let's face it, we all do. It reminds me of that saying, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And maybe our role is to be a supportive companion on their journey, not try to reroute them onto ours.
I like that, being a cheerleader, not a backseat driver. And speaking of things that can be tricky to navigate with family, the article also touched on personal finances, specifically inheritance.
Ooh, yeah, that can be a sensitive subject for sure.
It talked about a man, Mr. Robert, who shared his inheritance plans with his sons way before it was necessary.
Oh no, what happened?
It caused a lot of tension. The sons started thinking more about the money than their relationship with their dad.
It shifted the focus, yeah. Like suddenly those family dinners are less about catching up and more about who's getting what down the line.
Exactly. And even if those conversations need to happen eventually, maybe there's a time and a place for them. And maybe that time isn't during a casual family gathering.
Right. It's not about being secretive, but about protecting those relationships from becoming, well, too transactional.
Protecting the heart of what makes a family. Love, connection, shared memories. Those things are more valuable than any inheritance.
Couldn't agree more. And that seems to be a theme throughout this whole article, right? It's not about material possessions, but about the quality of our relationship.
Absolutely. The true treasures are the bonds we build, the love we share, the time we spend together.
Those are the things that truly matter, the things that leave a lasting impact, a true legacy. You know, what strikes me is that this article is really making me rethink what it means to be close to family.
How so?
Like, it's not always about spilling all the tea, sharing every detail. Sometimes it's about those unspoken things, that sense of understanding and support.
I see what you mean. It's about respecting each other's space, their choices, and trusting that those bonds are strong enough to handle a little bit of, I don't know, maybe healthy distance at times.
Yeah, exactly. Like knowing when to step in, offer advice, or share something personal, and when to just, be there, listen without judgment.
It's a dance almost, a balance between closeness and allowing each person to be their own individual.
Right, because families, they're complex,
Yeah.
right? Everyone's got their own quirks, their own paths, and maybe accepting those differences, that's part of what makes those bonds so special.
It's about letting go of that need to control or fix everything, recognizing that those imperfections, they're part of the tapestry,
It makes me think about all those times I've tried to, rescue my kids from making their own mistakes.
Oh, I think we've all been there. It's that parental instinct, right? But sometimes the best lessons are learned through experience, even if it means a few stumbles along the way.
And you know what else this article made me think about? Forgiveness.
Oh, that's interesting. It wasn't explicitly mentioned, was it?
No, not directly. But it's kind of woven throughout all those 5 points, don't you think? Like, forgiving ourselves for past mistakes, forgiving our loved ones for their choices, even just accepting that families aren't perfect.
Yeah, I see that. Forgiveness as a foundation for deeper connection, letting go of those old hurts and resentments to make space for something new and more positive.
Right, and that's what's so powerful about it, I think. It's not just about the past, it's about creating a better future for those relationships.
giving each other the chance to grow, to change, to evolve together, because families, they're not static, are they? They're constantly changing, adapting to different phases of life.
Exactly. And as we get older, it's about cherishing those moments, big and small, that remind us of what truly matters.
Those phone calls, those shared meals, those heart-to-heart conversations, they become even more precious, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's about appreciating the simple joys of being present with each other, offering support, just being there. Sometimes words aren't even necessary.
It's that unspoken language of love and connection that truly speaks volumes. You know, as we wrap up, it makes me think that maybe the most valuable legacy we can leave behind isn't about money or possessions.
It's about the relationships we've nurtured, the love we've shared, the impact we've had on each other's lives.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's a legacy that transcends time and material things. A legacy that lives on in the hearts of those who knew and loved us.
What a great conversation this has been. I feel like I've got a lot to think about, a lot to apply to my own life. I hope our listeners feel the same way.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you. And to our listeners, may we all strive to create those legacies of love and understanding, not just for our families, but for everyone around us.
Yeah.